Good day, nerds, and welcome to episode 46 of the Nerd Cantina Show. I'm your host, Ken, and joined with the founder of thenerdcantina.com and the co-host, Steve. Today, we're going to recap the latest in nerd news, largely in the tech sector this week. We're going to discuss the Apple and Tic Tok skipping congressional hearings on the tech industry and China's impact. We're also going to talk over China imposing some strict limits and curfews on their citizens.
U.S. Air Force tests Starlink.
And YouTube makes a big change in their terms of service, and we're going to speculate on what that means for us users and creators.
Then we talk robots.
So there's a lot going on in this last week, so let's just get to it.
Calling back all nerds. Nerds!
All right, well, welcome back, nerds, to episode 46. And Steve, how you doing?
Not bad, not bad. It's a nice cold start to the, I guess, long winter in Chicago. Even though it's still fall, we're covered in snow. It's 20 degrees. I'm hating life right now. It's a great time.
Yeah, none of those problems here in San Diego. Enjoy that. Survive the cold, and that should have provided you a little bit of time indoors to catch up on some of these shows. And I know a new one, His Dark Materials, which came out last week. You've at least been able to get started. I have yet.
Yeah, so we've talked about His Dark Materials on the new fall shows that are starting. And episode 2 will air tonight. Again, we record these on Monday mornings, so it's a Monday night show, so I'll be watching episode 2 tonight. But episode 1, I enjoyed. I think it's got some promise, but I did notice and want to talk about, so there's two different perspectives, I guess. So I'm a nerd. I buy into the fantasy genre fairly easy. You know, you just throw me in the world and I'll pick it up running. My girlfriend, not so much. You know, you need to hold her hand through a little bit of this stuff in the beginning. And in the beginning of the episode, you literally have like a 3-minute text fading in and out that explains like the world. So just off that premise alone, like it's a lot of reading to set up a TV show. You know, it gives you how the demons work and how the world is kind of working. You know, you usually like a show to kind of present that in the visual form, but no, they give you like pages 1 and 2 of the actual novel that you have to read before the show even starts. So right off the bat, you're kind of like losing that like that in and out audience that isn't really quite sure what this show is going to be. And then it just like, jumps right into this fantasy world where there's talking animals and shapeshifters, and they're talking about dust. Like all these wizards are worried about dust. And like, you know, so she just looks over at me on the couch like, what the fuck is going on, man? And I'm just like, I just got to like, be like, just hang in there. Just hang in there. Like, I'm sure it's going to get better. Like, I know it's a little confusing now. So I found that interesting that that's the route they try to like hit the ground running, because I guess they got a lot to tell. So they're just kind of banking on audiences like buying in right away. And I think they're going to lose a big chunk of audience because of that.
Yeah, I think it's part of the challenge of fantasy genre in TV altogether is the more, you know, some fantasy novels have incredibly complex ways that the people interact with the world. You know, we're big fans of Brandon Sanderson and a lot of his books. And, you know, think about like adapting some of his books. It takes some time to really explain how people are interacting with the world and the mystical elements of it. Like Game of Thrones was fantasy, but it wasn't like,
it was dipped in a heavy dose of reality.
Yeah, it was really like still human political drama with dragons, but you didn't really have to learn a whole lot about how you know these mystical things take place in the background. You end up like finishing Game of Thrones, you still don't know what the Red Witch was doing. Who the hell knows what's going on there? And yeah, it's definitely weird. I'm interested to pick up that show.
I just pictured like a dad that knows nothing about it coming into the room late with the popcorn and like his drink and only catching the last line of that little paragraph that you have to read before, and just being like, oh wait, what's going on? Like, why's that ferret talking? Like, so I just found it. I think our audience, and a lot of the audience needs to just kind of like have some faith in HBO, have some faith in the source material, and kind of just like give it 3 episodes, 4 episodes before you just are like, this is too weird for me. Like there's going to be this is just too much. Like, I can't do this. I can't do it.
I wonder if like they, they focus group a room of nothing but like people's grandma, just a room of just everybody's grandma sitting and watching these first episodes, and then they just get 15 minutes in and pause and be like, all right, what questions do you have?
Yeah, no, grandma went straight back to Murder, She Wrote, or her Lifetime movie. Like grandma switched it right back to Lifetime after she had to get her bifocals and read that fucking paragraph. Well, sticking with entertainment, today is Monday the 11th, and I'm assuming tonight at midnight and sometime during today we're all going to get our emails for Disney Plus. Dun dun dun.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to log in. I know there's been a lot of news in the last week really about Disney Plus finally came to an agreement with Amazon, so you can get Disney Plus on a Fire Stick. You can get Disney Plus on Amazon TVs. It appears the app should be pretty widely available at some time in the next 24 hours that you can download it. It's still not available right now.
My fear is that the app servers are just going to crash because so many people are trying to download the app off Xbox, off their iPhones, off the Google Store. The entire Star Wars community is staying up till 3 a.m. tonight to at least watch the first 3 or whatever many episodes they post of The Mandalorian.
Yeah, I don't know if I never know how, maybe it slows it down. I don't think anything's going to crash. It'd be pretty interesting if it did. But I don't think it's going to crash. I don't think there's enough people just waiting to hit that button. I
don't think you've downloaded enough things on launch day, motherfucker, because I have. And when your 400 megabyte app is downloading at 500 kilobytes a second, that's a problem. When normally my video games are downloading at like 250 megs per second, and now this little tiny app is downloading at 1/100th of the speed. Like, yeah, that's an issue.
Yeah, like I said, I'll be curious. Don't worry, I won't be clogging up the bandwidth. I won't be logging in at midnight or whatever else trying to download it. So it'll be okay. Everybody will get their Disney Plus eventually.
Yeah, every dude with a dog named Chewie, though, is going to be on that shit and fucking clogging that fucking bottleneck up.
We'll definitely be talking here in the future about Disney Plus, about its kind of interface, and definitely some Mandalorian talk going into next week.
We'll have a week to play around with it, and we'll definitely give a Disney Plus review next week. I may even try to post one up on YouTube. And then, we're going to go into our Apple story. But before that, I did order an adapter that could possibly let me watch my Apple TV on my television without spending that $180. I think I found a $15 workaround, and it should be at my house today.
Oh, yeah. What's maybe you shouldn't tell anybody until you validate that it actually works.
Exactly. So we'll see. It should arrive at my house today. I'm going to try to watch a blind Jason Momoa walk into branches tonight while I'm waiting for the Disney Plus app to become live. So we'll see what that be about.
All right. Well, let's get into the meat of the week, as some of these topics I'm sure will get us worked up and discuss in greater depth. And the first one that we're going to talk about is, so this week there was congressional hearings was invited to all these different tech companies in order to discuss the tech industry and the impacts and influence that China is having on the tech industry. And these congressional hearings, regardless of what you're talking about, oftentimes lack a bit of productivity. The individuals in Congress are not well prepared. Their staffers don't do a good job explaining what the internet is to these old people who sit in Congress. But still, it's something that needs to be discussed and addressed. And there were two notable members or companies that were invited that didn't attend. And you get an empty seat that was tweeted out by the congressman that Apple's seat was empty and TikTok's seat empty. We all know why Apple's important, because they're one of the big four, one of the big four companies in the tech industry that is dominating the world. And TikTok, being a Chinese-owned company, not there to discuss Chinese impact. Kind of interesting there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, if there's anything that shows the need for Gen X to start running for more public office, it's these fucking hearings. That's for sure. Everyone's looking to the boomers and the millennials to solve the issues of the world. I think these hearings are a blatant cry to Gen X to step up to the fucking plate and save us all. As a loyal Gen Xer, I definitely see the need for people that have used a rotary phone in their life and know how to download an app at the same time to be in our government. I think it's a void definitely needed. As far as Apple and TikTok not showing up, it just shows, no one was like subpoenaed, right? It was all invited, so they didn't have to show up. It's not like they flipped off the law and now there's legal implications. But the fact that they are disinterested to participate in a conversation that is important to our national security, it is important to human rights and things like that. It's kind of sad to see I don't know 1, 2, or 3 Apple, Google, Amazon where they all rank, but top 3. It's sad to see one of the top 3 companies not participate in this conversation, especially when, TikTok's a platform. Apple's more of a product provider. Most of their products are made in China. You'd think that if we're going to start shooting regulations down the pipeline that regard China, you might want to be part of that conversation.
Yeah. And so that when it comes to Apple, that's part of the concern is Apple. Tim Cook, and then they regularly talk about China being their biggest growth market, right? That's the biggest, still relatively untapped market out there that is emerging in, at the consumer level of tech at a massive level. So they still look at China as this big growth market. They've also had some weird responses to Chinese things in the past. Nothing that has been very big or publicized, but they do restrict certain things that are available to individuals who are in China. They do, like in Hong Kong. There was an article, I can't remember how long ago this was, but I remember there was a time where China or Apple was getting some slack because they removed the emoji of the Taiwanese flag from Hong Kong, from all of anybody from the OS of anybody who was in Hong Kong, because China claims that Taiwan is China. It's not its own country, and so people in Hong Kong were using that emoji, and China got Apple to shut it down.
And Apple's defense is like, well, we tell China that we don't want to, but then they say, Iggy Mao now, and Apple just kind of okay. Sorry, but we'll do it.
Yeah, and that goes into why are these hearings happening? Well, the hearings were happening not to set any laws, but to just discuss the influence and the impact that China is having on our tech sector. And we've seen China continue to step into the capitalist pressure realm, and it's like I said, it's something that should be talked about. And I could see the reluctance of like an Apple to even show up to something like this. If you're TikTok, you don't show the fuck up.
No.
You don't show up. You are a Chinese-owned company. Yep. And TikTok has come into some scrutiny by the U.S. in the past because it's not clear. I'm a terrible representative of what is TikTok. I still don't know what TikTok is.
It's like the next morph of Vine. So you know how people used to make those like 15-second lip sync videos and like it's like the next rendition of Vine. It's for Instagram people that don't want to use Instagram and, you know, video people that don't want to use YouTube. It's just another one of those, you know, to me, it's like Vine 2.0.
Okay. And I know TikTok has come under scrutiny in the sense of their terms of service were ambiguous. They're, you know, what were they doing with data and profile data and things that they were pulling? Being a Chinese-owned company, nobody knows, like whatever accounts you link to this, whatever you do, as far as information you provide to TikTok, you have no idea what's happening to that data.
Yeah, and I'll use this as a quick advertisement for this Friday's Cantina conversation, because we talk about this greatly with our friend who is an ethical hacker and the dangers of what these apps are linking to. You sign in with Google, you sign in with Facebook, and now you're giving all this information to a Chinese company. And as we've stated previously, every Chinese company is just a tentacle of the Chinese government. It's by law of their country. That's how it works. You know, so what are you feeding that beast?
Yeah. So in TikTok being one of the companies that, you know, it's not a matter of, are they influenced by China? They absolutely are. So being able to explain in what way the Chinese government intertwines with them, what influence, you know, TikTok has repeatedly stated that they have nothing to do with the Chinese government. They are in no way felt pressure by the Chinese government to comply with any terms.
But it's like motherfucker, are you Chinese? Yes, then you government. Like if you Chinese and you own a company, then you government. Sorry, that's just how it works.
Yeah, so it's, you know, there's two companies that missed. They're important for different reasons. Apple has oftentimes, you know, been able to present itself as, you know, even the article that we shared from 9 to 5 magazine, and CNN picked this up and everything else. But we consider Apple oftentimes to be a fairly ethical company. Even the congressman who's put together this panel, Congressman Hawley, even referred to Apple as generally a good corporate citizen. Like they're normally doing what's right in the sake of privacy.
I will give them the credit. They have defended privacy in multiple occasions, especially when it comes to like certain like Patriot Act type things that the government wants them to do with unlocking their phones and things like that. That they've sided with personal privacy a number of times. But what we're seeing is that didn't affect their profit. So now when anything affects their profit motives, that's where we get into these gray areas, and we see companies like this starting to tank. And what scares me is that, you know, we're going to run into this point where we have to put national security over the interests of the free market and capitalism. And that's going to be a very ugly political fight.
Yeah, and then how does that even get expressed or get practiced in the internet? In what goods are sold, what goods are already there? It's going to be a difficult issue to solve, and everybody, especially these big companies, their business models are more and more intertangled with Chinese companies, Chinese interests, Chinese consumerism, as things go further and further. So these conversations should happen now. Hopefully Apple comes to the table, because even if we consider Apple, you know, this good corporate citizen, I would hope that they would be then a leader in this area to talk about these other companies that are maybe doing it less well, to discuss some of their concerns, some of the steps that they're taking, which they were absent and didn't send a representative to this latest hearing. So hopefully
you
get them in the next one.
just want to seem like they care. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not asking Tim Cook to come, but send some genius bar dickhead in a blue shirt to fucking to at least sit in the chair. You know what I mean? I'm Bob. I'll be Bob, and I'll be your genius today.
He's just there helping all the senators figure out how to actually log into their Apple accounts. But all right, let's move on to
more China.
More China. Real fast, while we're talking about China, let's discuss how they have imposed pretty strict gaming limits now on all individuals under the age of 18.
Yeah, if you're 15 in China right now, you mad? You're mad.
Yeah, so if you're under 18 in China, they're putting limits to where you can only play for 90 minutes a day,
and you have a 10 o'clock curfew.
Yeah, 10 o'clock to 8 a.m. You can't play at all. So putting pretty strict. In social engineering, don't leave it up to parents to determine what is appropriate amount of gaming when the government can do it better. I guess that's the Chinese model there.
Yeah. So if you're under the age of 18, you get 90 minutes, and we want you off screens and in bed by 10 o'clock, government regulated, which. I don't know how this stuff gets easily enforced. I don't know if they can shut down IPs. I don't know how the enforcement's going to work on this thing. If they're just going to be.
Well, I'm curious to hear how all these things are. We talked a couple weeks ago about them using facial recognition software for access to the internet. So you had to go through facial recognition in order to access the internet. This is a part of their social points program or whatever else to ensure that, while you're on the internet, you're behaving yourself in a manner that's going to earn you those social credits. So if you've got to authenticate yourself as you enter the internet in order to play the games these online games and things in the first place, then yeah, they can just shut it down after 90 minutes. In the middle of your Fortnite match, you hit minute 90 and they just kill you.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, does that just mean that every RPGs are going to become really popular in China now? Like a Tomb Raider that you don't need to play online, that you could just download and play. Are people just going to go back to retro Nintendo games all of a sudden? People are going to do a workaround. Motherfuckers just ain't going to stop gaming. That's for sure. So where does this lead? I'm quite curious as to where this goes.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to think that a teenager is the same in any country, and they're all going to be generally assholes who are going to try to find a way to get around authority. But I don't know how much people get around that authority or are willing to dance around with that. So yeah, maybe you're going to get some offline gaming that's going to become a little more popular. But either way, it's an interesting case. There's probably plenty of people in this country who say that, yeah, they would limit their kids to 90 minutes a day. No, they can't play at 10 o'clock to 8 a.m. But if there was a law that said so,
I'm sure there's a big subsection of parents that are kind of like glad they don't have to be the bad guy now when they want to get their kid off Fortnite. So sorry, like the government can't do it. Like, sorry about it. You had tonight was raid night. No, tonight it's bad. Like you gotta come offline.
You get 3 hours on the weekends.
The great leader said so. Like you gotta get off. And honestly, if you're a 15-year-old in the world outside of China now, I think you have a different perspective on how tough your life is. You thought you had it bad, kid. You ain't Chinese.
This is social engineering at its best. And this just goes to show, hey, again, 100-year plan. We talk about it all the time. China's got a 100-year plan. They're not willing to let their youth fucking skip out on doing their homework and, practice coding and doing whatever else is their national objectives towards economic super dominance in the next 100 years. And this is just the way that they will limit exactly how much they can consume in order to focus their efforts where they seem more important.
Yeah, it's It's just fucked up. Yeah. It's just really fucked up because, they're starting. If people weren't protesting China enough before, they just created a whole nother wing of rebels. Like there's at least going to be 100,000 out of a billion people. There's at least going to be 100,000 teenagers that are just screaming "fuck the police" right now.
Maybe there's a whole bunch of Asian kids out there who are thinking, I get 90 minutes. Like right now, I get 15 minutes a day. Maybe there's a bunch of people that are like 90 minutes now. This is fucking spectacular. It's. But China is the largest gaming industry, the largest by far as far as amount of total time in gaming. So, being the largest gaming market, this is saying a lot that they see the younger generations, probably getting more and more involved in this, and they're just trying to throttle it back as their adults are already consuming it at a high level.
All right, on to the next one.
All right, next one. So more about, I guess, the big four. When we talk about the big four, you talk about Amazon, Facebook, Google, and Apple is the big four tech. There's a good book on it called The Four, which I urge anybody to read. I enjoyed it thoroughly. It just talks about all the different ways that those companies are trying to dominate the world and dominate capitalism. And one of them now is Google, and it's YouTube. YouTube being an arm of Google. And so this was sent to us by a member of the Nerd Cantina community who came across this, and he knows that he can get us fired up. So Sean, thanks for getting us fired up, worked up on this topic here, and that's on YouTube changing the terms of service. And there's a lot of companies that are changing their terms of service. There's some speculation on why a bunch of people are changing the terms of service. There's some California laws that are being written that are requiring companies to be more transparent, requiring companies to disclose more. So what we see is a lot of apps, a lot of things updating and change their terms of service, probably to be in compliance before they end up violating California law. And YouTube does so. And within there's a questionable statement that has a lot of people speculating.
Do you have that statement in front of you? Because I think the actual wording is pretty important.
Yeah. So within this section, so there's a lot of things that they changed. There was a section titled "Terminations by YouTube for Service Changes." And then in there, the exact sentence or verbiage was, YouTube may terminate your access or your Google account's access to all or part of the service if YouTube believes, in its sole discretion, that provision of the service to you is no longer commercially viable.
That's kind of what's really messed up, is commercially viable is such a subjective term. So what? If I don't have enough subscribers, you could just can me because... nobody wants to see my unboxing videos. Like you say you're clogging up our bandwidth with your shitty content. Bye.
Well, and it sometimes could not even be people with shitty content, as I would like to think the Nerd Cantina has spectacular content.
Wonderful content.
And the reviews and things that we're putting out, but we don't have 10,000 subscribers. We're not hitting the mark where YouTube actually starts to consider you truly a commercially viable model. So, a lot of people who get to those 10,000 subscribers start somewhere and pick up. So, at what level is somebody not commercially viable and what point are they? Another speculation that a lot of people on the interwebs and through Reddit are concerned about is this concept that it doesn't talk about creators. This isn't a term of service for being a creator. This is a term of service of use. So could they ban your access to your account, say, because you're using an ad blocker or you're using some of these YouTube services that allow you to skip the ads? And if you're not providing them ad dollars and you're not giving them ad views, does that make you no longer commercially viable, that you're not providing them the data necessary? So using ad blockers, using anything that's screening your IP, not providing them that data that they're using to drive AdSense, does that make you personally no longer commercially viable as a consumer?
If you click the skip ad button too many times in your usage, are you just going to get banned?
So that's another speculative issue. none of these things have, I didn't find any stories of anybody getting banned for this commercially viable, violating terms of service for this commercially viable provision here. But
they have been shooting some warning shots across the bow, though, with the emote stuff. That is currently going on.
Yeah, so I'm trying to find that YouTuber's name. I don't remember what his name, but there is a YouTube channel. Markiplier, right?
Markiplier, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what Markiplier does, but Markiplier has a YouTube channel, and from what I gleaned from an initial article was he does he has stories on his YouTube channel that he goes through, and it's almost like choose your own adventure, like the Black Mirror
Bandersnatch.
Yeah, Bandersnatch that they had. I was going to say that, and I thought that was a joke. I thought that was something I was making fun of. That's actually the name of it.
Yeah.
All right, so
it's the Doctor Strange.
So he does these stories, and then within there, while he's doing YouTube Live, individuals comment, send emojis or whatever else in order for him to choose one direction or the other to take the story. Well, apparently spamming emotes within the chat is illegal. It violates some kind of terms of service. And what YouTube was able to do was not just like kick them off the service or off that video, is they banned their Google accounts or blocked their Google accounts, which means that you had hundreds of people who were following the rules of this creator, interacting with this creator, who banned their Google accounts, and
now they can't get into their Google spreadsheet.
That means you can't get your Drive, your email. You can't the level in which our lives are intertwined with Google. I know mine is. I know the amount I rely on being able to save and access my cloud storage, being able to access shared Google documents and stuff for work, and my email and calendar rule my life. If I lose access to that because I gave a bunch of green hearts to tell some dude to go left in a story, man, I'd be pissed.
Yeah, and as devil's advocate, I kind of seen maybe some uses of this. So if you have, female live streamers, you don't want people to be able to, just spam eggplant and peach emojis and the squirt emoji. Like, to me, I can see how in this day and age that might be considered a form of sexual harassment or something like that. So the groundwork for the provision, I guess you'd say, I kind of understand, but I fear its execution. So to me, a lot of these tech companies want to take certain problems and just take an axe to it and use that as a solution, when really most of these issues need a scalpel. You need a fine tune. There's lots of gray areas. There's things we need to consider so that it's not really an axe problem, but yet, they just want to do it in one fell swoop. Okay, here, we're going to make this thing. And then, if you get caught in the wake of it, they really don't have that much sympathy for you.
Yeah, we've talked about it. There's such a difficult challenge that these tech companies have. And anybody who thinks that this is just a simple solution, there isn't. The scale at which the amount of messages sent per minute, posts sent per minute, tweets sent per minute, whatever it happens to be, videos uploaded per hour, it's such a large amount that you can't have a human approach to all of it. So you have to rely on these systems and these AI programs that are going to scrape and scan everything. And then, I guess, if you've got your AI cued to, hey, these emojis are being used because it's really easy for the computer to identify when somebody's saying words that are derogatory, that those have been built into the model. But then people started getting around that by using emojis to say, hey, well, the computer's not going to catch me as harassing this woman when I just sent her the eggplant, right? And well, now it does. I don't know what a green heart is doing. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not in the know. I know why
honestly,
I
think that's one of the worst things of appropriating these things. You know, like we said last week, I can't give an okay symbol anymore without being labeled a white supremacist. And like, I mean, we used to play the circle game with Dad back in the 80s. You know what I mean? If he put the OK symbol below his waist and you looked at it, he was giving you a shot to the arm with just sheer fury. I'm talking bruises. Like, you know, so I grew up playing the circle game and honestly, one of my, it became popular again, and I was a bouncer at a nightclub for a long time, and I'd be in the background of a lot of group photos, and I would be bored at work and I'd drop the circle game into mad people's photos without them knowing. And now I'm fearful that, you know, someone's going to catch it and just be like, oh, you know, that bouncer at Spy Bar was a nasty white supremacist.
Yeah, somewhere down the road, you're going to become like politically active, and then there's going to be hundreds of images of you using secret white power messaging throughout your entire life.
Those hundreds of images will be dwarfed by the thousands of images where I blatantly did some fucked up shit. So I'm not really worried about that.
But yeah, it's this YouTube change of service. It going back to the topic here, but it has the potential to just end people's Google accounts, and that like we're so intertwined in this commercially viable. I love that they put like, you know, by YouTube's sole discretion. We all know it's your sole discretion. We know that you don't give a fuck what anybody else thinks or appeal processes. None of that needs to happen. That's part of the problem with like this Markiplier. He has reached out. He is a big influencer, so YouTube has personally like reached out to him via Twitter, apologizing that his individuals are being affected. But he's still having a hard time getting YouTube. Like YouTube is addressing the fact that they did this, and he can't even get them to, in a timely manner, review these cases or reinstate these individuals. They're still going through whatever arbitrary appeals process that YouTube has. And it's difficult what they hold over our head in this commercially viable kind of thing. It gets a lot of people scared as far as like creators. To me, I don't see it as much of an issue. I don't see it being smart for YouTube to start like not allowing people who have, you know, low like counts or whatever else. But maybe it gives them the ability for individuals. We talk all the time about what is their responsibility with like hate speech or responsibility with individuals who are putting up lewd videos or whatever else. Well, maybe this becomes their way. They say, well, hey, you're not commercially viable because nobody's going to buy ads. Even if you get to 10,000 subscribers, nobody's going to buy ads on your hate speech channel. So you're gone. You're gone now. And maybe that gives them the right to do this now, which is also kind of scary, but.
Yeah, I mean, again, that, you know, you don't have to like what somebody's saying, you know, but we are in a free country. They do have a right to say it. Google's taking precautions to where they can have the power to say, well, you have the right to say it, just not on our shit. Yeah. You know, and this is what runs into the platform or provider issue that we've talked about many times on the show. Is you can't sit under the guise of provider status for law and then use the platform status for your own personal benefits and things like that. That's where, you know, this is just going to exacerbate that kind of issue. You know, it's really, it's a touchy subject. I see the need for certain things, and then I also see how it can be misused and mishandled. And it basically boils down to the fact that Google's like, I got so much fucking money. Fuck you and your 1.3 million subscribers. You know, to you, it's a lot of money. To you, it's a lot of people. But to us as a company, you're still small time. You don't mean shit. You know, and if people like that, if people with, you know, upwards in the 5, 6, 7 figure subscribers, 7-figure views are still able to be demonetized and told, you know, you're not worth our time. You know, it just shows how much how much power these companies actually do have over our lives.
Yeah, like I said, I'm curious to see how it puts into practice. Right? We don't have any examples of them putting this commercially viable terms of service into practice yet. So it doesn't go into effect until December 10th. So if at December 10th, anybody who's less than 1,000 subscribers just disappears, well, then maybe we're going to all turn back and say, oh shit, all right, like they weren't fucking around with this commercially viable thing.
Yeah, I'm a fade away like Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future, motherfucker. So start pounding that subscribe button now, Cantina members.
So if that's not what they're doing, and this is just, again, they were forced, everybody was kind of handheld into making updates to the term of service, and this is just an ambiguous statement that gives them a lot of flexibility, because that's what a lot of these companies do, is they create ambiguous statements within terms of service in order to use their sole discretion later to...
Oh yeah, they live in the vagaries. They swim in that shit.
So I don't know if this is really much different than anything they've had in the past. I think it's just that, what does commercially viable mean to them? It could mean anything, and because it's so vague, that means that anything could be a ban to anybody, whether that's consumers or creators. And
yeah, I don't think they can do anything more than they could do to you before. I think now it's just more laid out, the power that they have in their terms of service, so that now we're more aware. They wanted to shut your Google shit down before they were going to do it. I just think now, like you said, with the laws being passed, that the verbiage in their terms of service is becoming more apparent of the power that they have, and it's starting to really get people to wake up, which we've been trying to get people to do for a while now.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's leave this behind, at least for a month or so, and like I said, we'll probably revisit it if we start hearing articles or we start hearing things of individuals getting banned and losing their Google accounts. We'll be back on this topic, but for now, it's just something looming out in the future. I know something's still kind of in this tech sector. I don't know. It's not worth. I mean, it's worth talking about, but in the end, not a ton of time to spend on it. But if you have ever wondered about like the net neutrality repealing and some of these questions with FCC, government regulations, and individuals or the government's responsibility in managing certain sectors when we talk about the internet or whatever else. There was a fairly interesting podcast that we listened to by Dave Rubin on the Rubin Report with Ajit Pai, who is the chairman of the FCC. And he doesn't do a ton of interviews. He does, he gives speeches. You could see him talk about things as far as him being a government chairman. But I had never heard him in just a kind of long form interview before. And he was on the Dave Rubin's Rubin Report. And there were some takeaways. There were definitely some things that were worth listening to if you are so inclined.
Yeah, I was really interested when I seen him on there. When the episode first posted, I made sure to listen to it right away just because I was like, what does this motherfucker have to say? And, to be critical of Dave Rubin and the episode, he did toss him a lot of softball questions. It was fairly... I think Rubin was aware that he wants to have more of these conversations, and if he went hard in the paint on a Jeep now, he might not be able to have a lot of these interviews. But when if you're an interviewer and you want to tackle subjects like this, you still need to do essentially what your job is, I guess. So I was a little disappointed in how he kind of like let him off the hook on a lot of these things. But he did make some good points that I may have previously not have thought of before. And, again, we're just putting this out there. So our audience, if you're interested in net neutrality, it's an interview you should definitely check out, and it may put your mind at ease, may give you some more concerns, but either way, it's informative and you should probably take a listen.
Yeah, there's a fair amount. I think he was known mostly for the net neutrality stuff. You had John Oliver do like an entire segment pretty much on Ajit and net neutrality. I think he did 2 different segments on it, and really like made fun of Ajit and his gigantic Reese's cup mug, which which made Ajit personally kind of the face of all of this. And he's still standing by the fact that the repeal of net neutrality was a great thing. He's against what like California and stuff's doing as far as creating state net neutrality deals. And by his argument, it's not the FCC's job to regulate these companies like this. It's antitrust law that's supposed to, it's not net neutrality's job to make sure that there's room for the new guys to come and compete with YouTube. That's antitrust law. And he's not wrong. The problem is we just can't trust antitrust law either. Yeah.
And he deferred the congressional government to take on these roles, which it is their job, and they suck at it really bad. And I did understand his point of making the fact that, a lot of people want the FCC to take pre-existing law and apply it to these new tech companies when really we need new laws to address what these tech companies are doing. You can't take 1940s landline laws and apply it to certain cell phone providers, internet providers, things like that, because it just doesn't really fit anymore. So when he made that point, it really kind of did make me think like, well, maybe all the onus shouldn't be put on Ajit and the FCC. They definitely do have a hand in the way we're shaping these laws. But yeah, this is something that we should be taking up with our local congressmen, our senators, our representatives, and get new laws written that address a more modern age of communication, a more modern age of content sharing, and how we do these things. Because taking laws that were written in the 40s, 50s, and 60s for Ma Bell aren't gonna be really applied to a Google, a Facebook, a AT&T, internet provider. It's, we do need new laws, and hearing him talk in depth about that kind of stuff was helpful.
Yeah, I think everybody should, if you're interested in these topics, it's definitely worth a listen to hear him explain. It did open my eyes too, in what is some of the FCC's responsibilities. Really, where are we misapplying the FCC? He seems like a pretty reasonable guy. You maybe don't agree with all of the directions he's taken the FCC and what he believes, but seemed pretty intelligent and reasonable in the way he spoke on that interview.
And another thing too is how our laws are kind of giving internet a leg up over our traditional cable and phone companies. We're holding censorship laws and issues to broadcasting companies and cable companies that the YouTube's, the Facebooks, and the everything else in the world isn't really held to. And I know the FCC slowly loosens these facts. I know there's a lot more penis on television now than there ever was when I was a kid. So obviously they're loosening up certain censorship laws. But at some point everything needs to be even and fair, right? So do we treat broadcast cable and television with the same, paint it with the same brush that we have with YouTube and all these other channels? Or do we start regulating, content on the internet, the same way we do with television? And I'll tell you right now, you start fucking with Pornhub and you're going to have riots in the street from incels left and right.
All right. Well, let's move from that as we're getting long in the episode here. So let's speed through. That's pretty much the end of our kind of in-depth topics. And let's get through these.
Yeah, we got some quick ones. Yeah, we got some quick ones we can pound through.
So one of them, we talk about it, just a quick update. So Starlink, we talked about Starlink being active, Elon Musk and his tweet. Now we see more coming from Starlink in the sense that Starlink was tested. Starlink Internet was tested by the U.S. Air Force, and more testing is forthcoming. The initial results came from U.S. Air Force in flight. They were receiving download speeds greater than 600 megabytes while in flight, flying across country. It's pretty good. Low latency, pretty high speed, 600 megabyte.
There's some dude in Oklahoma sitting in a McDonald's parking lot right now that would love that shit.
Yeah. So, and this is on a plane. So SpaceX says that it's not a big part of their business model is to be like a government contractor, but they definitely have a government contract to the tune of about $29 million right now to continue to develop and test internet that's available to Air Force, Army. Air Force is going to continue testing this on some of their like refueling platforms and everything else. And it you know, these long range planes that go out of sight when they have internet or they have data that's reliant on radio frequencies, it becomes restricted. So if they can have international, all around the globe internet that they can secure and provide through Starlink, that is a big deal for the military. So interesting that they're testing it out, and it's interesting that it's really the first like speed test or anything we've heard of Starlink and its capacity. So, hey, maybe here in the future you can fly around the country, you can go anywhere you want. If you're somebody who has the end terminal for Starlink and you have a Starlink subscription, maybe you get these 600 megabyte download speeds around the world.
Yeah, and we've, as military applications go, you know, we have soldiers abroad that are in mountain valleys and in things that it's very hard to get these signals from, you know, when you're involving cell towers and things like that. So Starlink could be a huge breakthrough for a lot of these military telecommunications.
And if it's 42,000 satellites, which is what they're currently approved for, it's hard to take out that system. You can maybe knock out a satellite or two if you're going to do some offensive attacks, but in the end, it's going to have a huge network over the next 20 years. I'm
telling you, Sven in his garage with a rocket's going to take one down one day.
Take one out. That's all that matters. All right. We also had some news around a Ford Mustang. Ford came up with a Mustang Lithium, which is a prototype. It's just a one-off. They just created one electric Ford, which looks phenomenal.
Yeah, I like this because the people that are going to fight the electric cars the most are going to be the dually truck drive-in gearheads and the drag strip gearheads. Even though some of the drag strip guys are recognizing the power of electric motorcycles have dwarfed combustion engine motorcycles in drag races just because of the amount of torque and things like that. So you do have a big portion of the automotive industry that doesn't care how we go fast. I just want to go fast are starting to recognize the power of electric. But there are people that are put off by the fact that you get into a Tesla and there's literally no sound whatsoever. It's the quietest thing that you'll ever hear. You know, they want that muffler. They want those glass pack mufflers. They want to hear that boom. So I think this is Mustang's way, or Ford's way of trying to appease them. You know, this is the first electric car with a 4-speed transmission, which I found very interesting. I thought it was a 4-speed or 6-speed manual. Which to me is that's a funny thing, because that just says that the douches out there driving the Mustang, they just want to go fast, but they just want to be in control and have transmission. It's like, I promise you, dude, the algorithm behind the speed control and throttle control in the Tesla is better than whatever you're going to fucking do slapping that stick. Yeah. So every gearhead friend I've ever had has flat out said that if you are truly trying to get your quarter mile time down, you go fully auto. Like, there is no person shifting a manual transmission that is going to beat an automatic transmission. None. You know, so that you're just appeasing to the burnout, you know, clutch dropping, you know, but if they have to do things like this to get people over to the electric side, then I applaud them for finding a way to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, either way, this thing has got
900
horsepower electric engine.
Like, holy fuck.
Yeah. So either way, it's cool. Yeah. Maybe it convinces a couple gearheads to to go towards the e-vehicles because, like I said, I'm looking forward to electric vehicles.
Yeah, right now they only made one. It's a prototype, but they definitely had said they're going to start moving in this direction. And like I said, man, I'm just excited that we are starting to see the automotive industry recognize the viability of electric cars and see the need, and are slowly starting to give more electric options to a wider customer base.
Yeah. All right.
Robots.
All right. So first robots that you shared was a bunch of cheetahs.
Yeah, Boston Dynamics. They had their dog, right? I think they're referring to that one as the dog. They released the commercial, which we put on the show, where it was helping carry tools and boxes and showed real applications for the construction industry. Well, a team at MIT came out with smaller versions, but it seemed from the video way more agile than the Boston Dynamics dog that they released. These little fuckers were doing backflips.
I was gonna say, I was trying to look up, like, they were doing backflips. I think they were going in excess of like 20 miles per hour running. Yeah, these cheetahs, they're impressive.
So if the dogs were used for construction workers, you were going to see patrolmen with little robot cheetahs with taser faces chasing down robbers, tasering the shit out of these fuckers. Like, I'm telling you, bro. I'm telling you.
Well, yeah,
some dude robbing 7-Eleven is going to get tased in the ass by one of these things in the next 5 to 10 years. I promise you.
But if you watch the video, of the Boston Dynamics cheetah, and you look at these little fuckers running 20-something miles per hour, and then you think, how could that be used against humans? And then it gets scary as fuck. Like, these things,
tasers to the ass. I just told you.
Yeah.
Taser face.
Right now, there is somebody in the garage creating a taser face dog right now.
If he hasn't already, and he heard this, I will feel a little guilty at this point now, because that was where the first place my mind went to. If you're running 20 miles an hour, NFL stars barely run 20 miles an hour. You're catching my fat ass. That's for goddamn sure.
All right. Well, next robot talk. This is another just silly dumb story. Is we got a robot fight, and I don't know, you're gonna have to explain this one to me.
So, the details are a little vague, but a autonomous robot that was out on that kind of like got a little out of control was hunted and chased down and taken out by a autonomous driving Tesla. So we could all feel safe knowing that if the robots do ever try to take over, maybe our robot cars will come to our need.
So what I want to say is this robot, one of the interesting things about the robot is that this robot was brought to the area that they were doing it as a demonstration from Philadelphia. So once again, it's these Philadelphia
Philly
robots that just can't survive in the real fucking world.
Fuck you, Philly.
So, and that's a throwback to the last robot that died with that hitchhiker bot or whatever else that got beaten to death in Philadelphia. So the Philadelphia's, apparently robots from Philadelphia also can't survive. But yeah, it's interesting. We've got actual autonomous fight. Maybe the first one ever.
Well, like, so the company that makes it is called Promobot. So they brought this Promobot to Vegas. So, and it's got this like cute little face on it. It looks like a robot butler, and I'm sure he's just walking around the strips of Vegas telling you what strip club you should go to or how much Celine Dion tickets are maybe. And at some point he defied his programming and went in the street. Like, he's only supposed to stay on the sidewalks. They got a program to stay on the sidewalks, and he, who knows, maybe decided to make a break for it. And he became sentient and decided to make a break for it. Well, when he went in the street, a self-driving Tesla ran his ass over. Who knows if it was on purpose? Me personally, I would like to think that my Tesla is trying to protect me from a robot invasion. and yeah, this Tesla kind of backed into it and took it out. And the execs at Promobot were kind of pissed. You know, they're like, we brought this thing to show off at CES, and we were going to have this big, beautiful robot, and now it defied its programming, and we can't bring it to the show, and they're a little salty.
Well, program better.
Yeah, that's what it boils down to is raise better robots, I guess.
All right. Well, that's it for the weekly news here for this week, and we'll continue to bring these topics to you if there's anything that you find particularly interesting, or it's kind of like how a member of the community brought us that the YouTube terms of service as that is an upcoming change. Feel free to share those in the nerdcantina.com/community, where we have a lot of these conversations. And if there's things you're concerned about, things that's going on in tech news, or you just want to have a group of good people to talk about the latest entertainment news, join us over at the nerdcantina.com/community.
Also, you can reach out to us on our voicemail line, leave us a message on any subjects you'd like us to do some research on, or maybe touch on the show, something that is maybe pertains to your life, that you care about. We're just trying to be as informative as possible. We pick a lot of these articles just because we know that it's not the common conversation that people are having, but maybe people should at least have some knowledge of. So if you got some of these subjects, like Ken said, either share the article in the Nerd Cantina community, or just leave us a voicemail with your situation or whatever you care about, and we'll try to fit it in the show. And be sure to come back on Friday, where we have a Cantina conversation with a longtime friend and a ethical hacker. We have our friend Bill Clay on, and he does the job of hacking your computer for you so that the bad guys won't get to. We have an in-depth conversation with him about the dangers of the internet, the dangers of social media and linking accounts and things like that, and how you could be more proactive in your life to make sure that your data and your digital self are more secured. It's actually a really fun, really good episode, conversation that we had with Bill, and I think our audience will have a lot to take away from it.
And if you take nothing away from it, you'll at least just be temporarily scared about the state of the internet. So definitely tune into the Cantina conversation, which will be coming out Friday this week. All right, well, with all that said, thanks again, nerds, and talk to you next week.
These days, comic book stories are more mainstream than ever. Unfortunately, not everybody has the means to be able to consume all of this greatness. Well, if you were to join me, Brian Wayne, on the Cheers to Comics podcast, I will help guide you through the rabbit hole that is comic books. Whether you're a brand new reader that just walked out of the latest blockbuster summer Marvel movie event and just have to know the source material, or you're an old dog and just want to get a different perspective from another reader, this is the podcast for you. And when I say comic book podcast, this is a comic book podcast. No filler material. I save all of the movie talk and all of the stuff outside of the illustrated, written world of comic books for all of the other podcasts out there. This is for comic book junkies and aspiring comic book junkies only. So tune in with me, Brian Wayne, 3 times a week. We'll be going over dozens and dozens of books in an overviewed fashion, not necessarily a review manner. But beyond that, I hype you up every week on the books coming out on the next week coming, as well as a bonus episode. And that could be anything from me dedicating an entire episode to a single story arc, or potentially even a kick-ass interview with a badass comic book creator. So if any or all of that tickles your little fancies, join me, Brian Wayne, and the rest of Slurred Nation on the Cheers to Comic podcast as I kick back drinks and drop all types of comic book knowledge. Cheers.